Here we go, my friends. It's me, your pal, Frank Garay, here with your other pal, Ginger Bell. We're going to get caught up on some stuff. We're going to be talking about standing out. You know, it might sound old school, but it's not. You know, we got to keep doing it. We got to keep doing it, man. And it's all different now because there's so many things going on, AI, all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, my goodness. So, I mean, it's worth talking about it again and just making sure we're, you know, doing the things we've got to do to be known, recognized, you know, that kind of a thing. Because listen, it all helps, right? It all helps. So Ginger Bell, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I always love hanging out with you.
Well, yeah, I could see that. That would be, yeah, I could. No, I'm kidding. I love hanging out with you. And by the way, this is the Mortgage Loan Officer Podcast brought to you by the Mortgage Marketing Animals. Let's go ahead and talk about this stuff. So you and I chatted just the other day, and as we always do, and just talk about stuff that's going on. And one of the things that you mentioned is, you know, now that we've got AI everywhere, right? Just literally everywhere.
Yep.
You know, how do you stand out? You know, because there's plenty of people using AI in different ways, right? And honestly, we, you know, in the AI clubhouse that we were doing for a minute there, we did learn that a lot of people still aren't utilizing it.
Yeah.
Which is shocking to me.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's a lot of people who are.
Right.
And so, and for those who are, it's a bit of a game changer, you know, depending on how you deploy it. And it can certainly help a lot of people stand out. You know, I know it's helping me. I mean, I have no lack of content anymore, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so what are your thoughts on it? What do you want to talk about today?
So, first of all, I think it's a small percentage that are actually using AI.
Yeah.
And I think it depends on using very loosely. So creating content is one of the largest ways that people are using it. You know, I mean, you started doing blog posts, right?
Yeah.
To where it's like, hey, I can immediately do that. And I know we had on the AI avatar, which I don't know if you started on that one yet.
Yeah.
But that's you know, some things. I mean, and I think honestly that's the biggest challenge, Frank, where it's like there's so many different things that it's almost like a point of just being frozen. And so, you know, here we are in the middle of June 2024, and rates have not changed.
Mm-hmm.
Housing market has not gone down for most areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're chugging along. And so it's that time when we're chugging along that you say, okay, I have got to stand out. And if you've made the decision you're going to stay in this industry, then now is the time that you be the professional that you are. And so what we're seeing a lot is, you know, we do video production. We started out with video production, and then we got into podcast production because mostly because of Devin and David Nguyen, and they had attended a Freedom Club event, and Carl said, do a podcast. So they did a podcast. They recorded 2 episodes and then called me and said, now what?
Yeah. Got these video files.
We did what Carl told us to do. And so, Carl said, hey, call Ginger, see if she can help you out. And so we did. And so we created a system. And then Carl, actually, I sat down with Carl and Steve, and we said, okay, how can we help more people do podcasts? And so Carl and I wrote guides, and we have a podcast guide, we have a planner, we have the, you know, the technology and everything. And so we started doing podcasts, and Frank, it's a game changer.
Yeah, it is. I love them.
Podcasts. And I mean, just like this, it's like you hop on, you have a guest on, and you have a conversation.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we have a client, Matt Helton, who's in Nashville, and he does a ton around reverse. And so he has a couple of networking groups that he belongs to that everyone in there serves seniors. And so he had been doing videos, and he goes, Ginger, he goes, I got to figure out, you know, I'm the mortgage guy that walks into this networking and everybody just runs away. And he said, I want to change that. And I said, well, let's start a podcast. So we started a podcast for him. It's called the Serving Seniors Podcast. And he invites the people that are in this networking group onto his podcast, and they can talk about their service. And so it's great for him because these are people that already serve that age group, that demo. Yeah. And so they can definitely refer in business.
I was going to say, it sounds like a pretty brilliant idea. Right
Yeah.
off the bat. Yeah.
And so it's funny, he called me probably about 3 or 4 months in after doing his podcast. He goes, Ginger, he goes, it's so awesome. He goes, I walk into networking group, and instead of being the guy standing in the corner that nobody wants to talk to, everybody just like boom, they surround
Streams to
me.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on? Yeah.
So I mean, it's one of those things.
Yeah.
And from that, there's another LO who's in Boulder who works for the same organization, and also does a lot around rivers. And
Yeah.
so same thing. He was doing videos. He had a guy who was an LO in his office doing the videos. And he called me and was referred by Matt. And he's like, I need some help on this. And he was occasionally doing an interview with a realtor. And I said, why don't you start a podcast? He goes, well, I am kind of doing it, but it wasn't regular. So we got him to where it's like it's regular now. And now he's seeing that same kind of change happening. And then we took him one step further, and we wrote a book because he teaches at the University of Colorado, and he has a financial literacy course that he teaches there, but he wanted to do something for seniors. So with the help of AI, and we drafted a lot of the content through ChatGPT. We made a custom GPT for him. We uploaded all of his guides. We wrote it in his voice and everything. And it's called the Retirement Mortgage Playbook. And we just got it onto Amazon a couple of weeks ago. It released as #1 new release on Amazon in financial planning. And now he's able to give a resource of this book to his referral partners that leads into what he's doing. So it ties in with the video and the podcast and the book. And then we send the videos and the podcasts out to his email database, and that goes out. And I think that's the thing right now. That's why it's like you got to stand out. You got to stand out in every single area. It's not just enough to make a video and to put it onto social media. Social media is a silo. It is just a silo. And so that's not going to be searchable through AI. So it's a matter of, gosh, you got to get out there and do it in every way, and repurpose it and share your expertise.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And it ties in with the DSP for the podcast too, because what better way when you're making your calls to say, oh, by the way, I mean, you found that, right?
I tell you, that's what I use. So, as you know, I went over and joined Success Mortgage Partners in Steve Kyle's group.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And which
The
is
bomb
just
now.
so cool, man. Like it is the
Yeah.
greatest place I could have ever landed. And I had to go on a journey to get there. I had to go on this little
We all
weird,
do. We all
weird journey
do.
to wind up there.
Yeah.
But now that I'm there, I'm just wildly excited. But and so part of what I'm doing, Ginger, is I am street level origination again, and I want to do this extremely well. And
Yeah.
the reason that I want to do it extremely well, it's not monetarily driven at all. It's purpose driven. It's
Yep.
is I want to be that shining example of this ain't just talk. There's plenty of these people in mortgage marketing analysts, or plenty of them that are just
Yeah.
like, this is what I do, and these are my numbers, and they're remarkable. They are now my inspiration, right? But
Right.
I want to be that guy. And so where I'm leading up to answer your question is now that I'm doing that, I'm on Call Stars every day. Me and my partner Bill Cross, and we are making phone calls, and we are setting appointments, and we are setting podcast appointments.
Right.
That's what we're setting. And and I want people to understand that you don't have to have a podcast to do the DSP, and you'll still be just as successful.
Oh,
You
yeah,
don't have to,
absolutely.
but when you have one, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to say, hey, I'm Frank Garay, and I host a podcast, and you're kicking butt, and I love to interview agents that are just slaying it. You'll be an inspiration to other agents. I found that most of the time, agents who are doing well like you, they don't mind sharing, with other agents how they got there and how they get their business. I was just wondering if that might be something that we could, knock out. And I tell you, Ginger, it's if you get them on the phone 8 out of 10 times, it's sure, man, I'll help out. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do that, and then that's your gateway to meet somebody, your gateway to get to know somebody, them to get to know you, which is your gateway into, possibly doing business together.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
a
so the
relationship.
podcast, to answer your long fat story on answering your question, yes, the podcast, it's wonderful. And it's a wonderful way to go. And
Well, I want to take you one step further because,
yeah,
first of all, congratulations
thank
in
you.
joining. Steve Giles is one of my absolute favorite leaders, mentors. I mean, he is such an inspiration and so great to hang out with, and he doesn't just, talk the talk. He walks the walk too.
Big
And that's
time.
what's really
Big
cool. So,
time. Yep.
so I am I'm delighted for you. So, but let's talk about that because as you're building, and I'm assuming you're going to build a team, right?
Yes. So indeed. So the reason to be not only a sayer but a doer is to bring people on that if they want to play with us, you got to play the way we play. But it's going to be by example that I'll show you how to play. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Yeah. So build
Yeah.
a team. Yes, that's definitely where I'm going with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, as you're doing that and as you're building that team, people, first of all, see you leading by example, which
Mm-hmm.
is why, again, with Steve, that you went with Steve, and why I know you went over to mortgage marketing animals when you did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of those things. The other thing in building a team is to be able to have like-minded people, like attracts like, right? And so when you're putting the podcast out there, you're doing the videos, and you're very well known in the industry. So I mean, honestly, I think there was somebody sometime that was, I think Steve Richmond said he was at an event and mentioned your name and somebody didn't know you. And the whole audience is like, what? What are you talking about?
Hey, not everybody does it. It's all good.
There was one person in North Carolina that didn't.
Yeah. One
But
person in North Carolina. Okay. Anyways.
but that's the thing. If you're recruiting, if you're building a team, whether it's just even if you're just building a team of realtors or building a team of LOs, having that ability for someone to build that relationship with you, it can happen over video, it can happen over podcasts.
Yeah, it
So
can.
one of the things you may want to do is to bring some of the conversations in about leadership, and having maybe once a month to do a leadership podcast, that focuses on that, because in our industry, leadership is so important and so needed right now.
Yeah.
And leadership can take on many different forms. I just did a podcast with Fabi Nagami, and we had Joe P. I never pronounced his name correctly, with Annie Mac, and we were talking about leadership and leading when it's tough. And one of the things he said in the podcast was, as an industry, many of the leaders did not do a great job through the great times, the prime times, and preparing for the time that we're in right now.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And so, it's like talking about those lessons and things like that. And I think that's important. And hey, it's easy to be great when the market's great, but when you can be great when the market's great, which I know there's so many people in Freedom Club and Mortgage Marketing Animals and the Loan Officer Breakfast Club who are slaying it in this market. But it's about that consistency, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. This is all good stuff. Speaking of that, oh my gosh, we've got this gal, just on a side note, speaking of people slaying it, we've got this gal who joined Loan Officer Breakfast Club, coming to live calls every day less than a year ago, Ginger. Less than a year ago. Has been in the mortgage business less than a year.
Wow.
Less than a year. Last month closed 14 transactions.
Yeah.
Less than a year. Yep. Okay. I don't know how she got to Breakfast Club. I think probably through one of Carl's podcasts. There you go. The podcast again. Go. And I think she got cued into Carl's podcast. And then from there, of course, Carl probably said, hey, go to Loan Officer Breakfast Club. She went to Loan Officer Breakfast Club. I remember her when she just got started. And the thing about her, which kind of plays into this whole conversation, is that she was brand new to the industry, brand new to the business, brand new to the Breakfast Club, raising her hand, asking questions. Like, wasn't intimidated. There's 300 to 400 people on the Zoom call. You know what I mean? Who knew everything and she knows nothing. Just was like, oh, I guess this is a place where I can ask a question. I'm going to do it, And so she started asking questions in the very beginning. Her name is Yolande. Yolande. I want to get her name out there. I didn't want to forget that. But she started asking questions, and we just over the past, close to a year on Breakfast Club have got to watch Yolande develop in less than a year into a brand new originators closing 14 deals in a month.
I love it.
I mean, it's just absurd.
Yeah.
It's absurd. So anyway, yeah. So with respect to, standing out, I think the point that you're making is that you just can't focus in on the one thing. You really
Right.
you really do need, well, you need to stick to your daily success plan and focus on
Number
that.
one.
But
Yes.
outside of the calls that you make Monday through Thursday, right? Outside of those calls, when you're going to start exploring other things, you need to kind of look in a few different areas, right? It just can't just be a Facebook post every week, or just can't, it's, yeah. Is that what I'm hearing you say, basically?
So 100%.
Okay.
And I think the thing of it is, first of all, activities produce results. So you always need to be doing those activities that are going to produce results. And that's the daily success plan. So first and foremost, that will always get you results, consistency, results, consistency, results. And, when you first start making those calls, you're going to not be great at it.
Right.
And it's going to be uncomfortable. And you're, I'm going to find anything else I can do besides this. This is horrible. But you know what? It gets easier. And then you start building a relationship. And over time it gets, and make it a game. When I first became an account executive years ago, I had started out with an A-paper company, Capital Commerce Mortgage. I don't know if you remember them. And we had a record month in July, and August was out of business because that's was back in maybe 2001.
Yeah, and back in dark 30. Yeah.
Yeah. And the market shifted, and secondary hadn't locked everything. And so it took the entire company down. So I had gone from, wow, this is so fantastic, to, what do you mean I can't cash my paycheck?
Right. You can't cash my paycheck.
And I wasn't an account executive. I was doing marketing, but I had taken over for an account executive. I was creating training for them and proficiencies and things like that. And I had created a daily success plan for the account executives. And this one account executive, she got divorced and somebody died, and she freaked out. And she's like, I'm not working here anymore. I can't handle this. I'm going to Italy. And they're like, don't go to Italy. Let Ginger take over your territory. You mellow out. So I took over territory. I implemented the daily success plan, was, call out for your rate locks and your pipeline and all that. So before the daily success plan was for LOs, I was doing it for account executives. So I implemented it. I took her from 35 million to 85 million in less than 3 months.
Wow.
And that was by consistency. That was by implementing that and to do that. And then now I'm without a company, and I'm like, but this works, and I do this, and I'm good. And so I ended up called to Argent. And I think you and I have been through this through my story.
Yeah.
Before.
This was, I've got a, just so you know, if you search my podcast, you'll see the Ginger Bell story, part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, we talk
all of
so
this
much.
Is, all of this is in there, but it's a freaking awesome story. I mean, it's so
what's
awesome.
Cool about this story, Frank, and this is why I say all things are possible. What's cool about this story is I called my recruiter. I'm like, I want to work for Argent. They were up and coming at the time. This is the company I want to work for. And so he came back. He's like, yeah, they're not hiring. And I'm like, everybody's always hiring good salespeople.
Yeah.
So I called down to their corporate office. You hiring? HR? No, not hiring. So I found the regional and called him. He's like, no, we're not hiring. I'm like, listen, I could take a territory from 35 million a month to 85 million a month in less than 3 months. I don't know if you'd be interested in those kind of results.
Yeah.
But at least let's have lunch. And he's like, yeah, okay. And so that's the whole thing. It's like, I knew in my heart that I am capable of great results, right? Because I'd done it before. And that wasn't the only time. And so you have to believe in yourself. And then you need to put the power behind it. And don't take that first no. If I would have taken that first no from that recruiter that said, no, they're not hiring, I would have never had the opportunity. And the job did not exist. But I met with him, And it's a great little thing. If you want a great book to read, and this is a fantastic book, Jack Canfield, it's called The Aladdin Factor: How to Ask for and Get What You Want. And it's one of the best books in how to phrase things. And so in that book, I learned this key question, and I use it in my closings for a lot of different things. But the question is, do you have any additional questions that I can answer for you that would keep you, and in this case, he was hiring me today. So do you have any additional questions that I can answer for you, or you'd like to ask for me, that will keep you from hiring me today? So what is that doing? That's going to smoke out what? Objections, right? And so he's like, nope. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, you're probably going to need a couple of weeks to get all the packaging done and everything. Here's my fax number, send the information over. And I just assumed people will do what you tell them to do. And so he sent over the information to me. I filled it out, sent it back to them. I started there 2 weeks later. He fired someone to hire me.
Wow.
Because he had a guy who was doing okay. But it was that conviction. And when you go into something with conviction, they see that. And so, it's like having, first of all, that conviction in doing the calls, having consistency, doing it in spite of the fact that you don't want to do it, believing in yourself, knowing how to ask the right questions and phrase them in the way. And then have the follow-up to stand out. Podcasts are a great way to do that. And podcasts are easy to do. You don't have to have a lot of fancy equipment. We actually have a client who she just records them on her phone. And, it's another thing of value. So, and add one thing. If you just add one thing, say, I'm going to add one thing a quarter as far as marketing myself and what that looks like.
I like that. Yeah, one thing a quarter. That way you make sure you're not adding 5 things at once, trying to work them all. Don't get anything done. But if you work add on top of the DSP, if you start doing one new thing and give yourself a quarter to get it dialed in, to get it down, to get it flowing, to get it smooth, to get it to where, okay, now this isn't going to suck up all my time. This is a, 1 hour a week episode that I've gotten it since I've gotten so good at it. It's 1 hour a week, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Now maybe I can stack something else on top. But I
look for that, and look for, Carl always says, if not you, then who?
Right.
So leverage your time. And that's why we have a complete podcast system where from beginning to end, all you have to do is record the podcast.
Yeah.
And then we take it over from there. So, those are the kind of things I think that's, and we're talking about standing out, here we are again, middle of June, 2024. Find one way that you can stand out outside of social media. And that's why I think that's probably the biggest lesson for me is outside of social media. Yes, there's things you can do in social media and you want to be on social media, but I don't want that to be your only thing you're doing, because AI, and we're already seeing this in ChatGPT, is very searchable. And I think Carl had posted, somebody got a lead that somebody had found him on ChatGPT. So
that's the new thing. Yeah,
and you have to put that information out there. You have to be able to have that. So that's it. And I think, congratulations, my friend. I'm so excited for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm excited too. In fact, I'm heading to Steve's. He's got a little thing going on at his place in Houston, Monday and Tuesday. So I'm heading out Sunday.
Awesome.
Going to Houston, man. It's probably like
8,000
degrees with humidity of 9,000%.
I think there's a storm or something coming in.
Yeah. And then on top of that, there's going to be a hailstorm. Yeah. You never know in Texas. You Texans out there, I don't know how you do it.
Luckily, there's air conditioning.
I bought a motorcycle once in, I think it was Austin, Texas. And, I live in California. So I flew out there and rode it home.
Oh, nice. Oh my God.
This is like July. Okay. It's in July. And I'm riding home. I hit like 4 thunderstorms before I got out of Texas into wherever's next, New Mexico or whatever it is. I don't remember. But yeah, it was just incredible. Incredible weather out there. It's just really something else.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it doing that now.
All right, Ginger Bell, everybody. If they want to reach out to you and get started, where you can help them on the podcast, edumarketing.com. Is that the best way to go?
edumarketing.com.
Okay, edumarketing.com. Edumarketing.com. Ginger Bell, great friend of the program, great friend of animals, and great friend of mine. And love you to death. You do great work. It's always awesome to hang out with you. Thank you so much for being here on the Mortgage Loan Officer Podcast. And don't forget, guys, reach out to Ginger. Get started on a podcast. It'll do you great things. It really, really will. And it's fun. I'm telling you, once you get used to it, it's super fun. Yep. So get a hold of Ginger Bell, edumarketing.com. All right. And don't forget to join us every Monday through Friday at loanofficerbreakfastclub.com, loanofficerbreakfastclub.com, where you'll get to dip your toe in the water with the Mortgage Marketing Animals Daily Success Plan. And it'll do great things for you as well. With that, we'll get out of here. Thank you, Ginger.
Thank you.
All right. For the rest of you guys, we'll see you here next time on the Mortgage Loan Officer Podcast, brought to you by the Mortgage Marketing Animals. See you. Bye-bye.